Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast.
Nice to meet you.
How are
Come
you?
on. Doing great, thank you.
Eugenio Grandio is the head of the Electromobility Association of Mexico. This is the industry group for EV makers. Chinese EVs are everywhere here. You can't get them yet in Canada, but they are coming.
This is the Dolphin Mini, which is one of the cheapest options in Mexico. It's around 400,000 pesos, which is like 23,000 Canadian.
It's a little kind of hatchback. It almost looks like a Volkswagen, and it's called a Dolphin. And it's blue, and I'm going to drive this Chinese EV down the streets of Mexico City. Wish me luck. The traffic here is crazy.
So, seatbelts on.
All right, buckle up. We're going to go for a drive.
If you see, it's pretty well equipped. It has 360 cameras, it has Apple CarPlay, has airbags. It's pretty peppy on how it drives.
So people have said that it's not fair to call them cheap cars because they're not made of cheap materials. Is that?
To be honest, now you're driving it, do you feel like in a cheap car?
No, I mean, partially I'm also just trying to concentrate so that I don't drive into anything. But yeah, no, it doesn't feel like a cheap vehicle.
No, like even Mexico has bumpy roads. It doesn't feel like very noisy. When you shut the door, it feels good. Go right?
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, don't worry.
Okay.
We'll take the next one. With the traditional cars, when you bought a cheap car, you knew you were paying lower money for it, no? With this one, you actually feel like it's a smaller, but quite good, well-equipped, well-built car. I think the most interesting thing is in Mexico, you save like 70% compared to gas prices. So if you were buying a car with the lowest running cost, look, two of them
over there.
Yeah, so you can see it's popular. But definitely, with all those savings, if you compare it to a gas car, it's way cheaper.
The traffic is a trip here. People are all going in different directions, but it seems chaotic and organized all at the very same time.
Wait.
Oh, left.
Sorry about it. There you go.
We're parked.
Yeah, we're parked.
That's it. Should I turn it off?
Yeah.
Very nice. I have driven a Chinese EV through Mexico City traffic, and we survived. It would be bad for the CBC if I wrecked the car.
So this is a charging hub by one of our members. So they have like 10 of these centers now already around the city, and you get a really nice experience, and you can see there's a lot of movement and a lot of people, and as you can see, most of them are Chinese cars. These are GACs.
BYD there.
BYD.
There's another one that just left.
But basically what you get is a real sense of how much movement with electric cars you get, no?
Hola.
She speaks English.
Oh,
I don't know if I speak well,
I
but
think you
I
speak
could
very
try.
good.
Oh, thank you.
We're from Canada. We're from
Okay,
the
nice
public
to meet you.
broadcaster in Canada. My name is Matt.
Hi, my name is Daniela. Nice to meet you.
Tell us about your car.
Well, it's from China, BYD. I think it's amazing and it's very small sized. You can go everywhere in the city and it's fine
Why did you buy this car?
because the price.
And so how much cheaper is that than if you were to buy a gas powered car or a car that was manufactured here in Mexico?
Yeah, maybe the double, I think. Wow. Yeah, I think so.
And so that's why you bought it, is because of price?
Yeah, because the price and it's from the city and I can charge. It's cheap as well. So I think it's good. Good deal.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the reasons why people in Canada are really concerned about these cars coming is the belief from folks who work in the auto sector in Canada that these vehicles are going to destroy them, that they're going to ruin the industry, that they're going to take their jobs. The Canadian auto manufacturing hub will not be able to compete against cars like this coming in that are this cheap. What do you say to those people who are worried that their jobs are going to disappear if we as a nation let in? I mean, it starts at $49,000 a year and could go...
Look, I think it's competition, no? Like, when we talk about this is 15, 20 years ago when we started doing EVs, most of the governments, we signed the COP, the Kyoto Protocol, and all these kind of things, and we said, hey, this is the direction we need to go as humanity for the global warming, for climate, and all that. And they got to work. And most of the OEMs did whatever minimum was necessary to comply. And of course, these guys went all in, and now they have the supply chain, the manufacturing capacity, the innovation. BYD was telling me, I visited their factory last year, and they were telling me that they have 100,000 engineers every morning coming to the office, filing patents and finding new ways to do things. So of course, it's difficult to compete that. But what I think is, by creating tariffs and blocking them and protecting these companies that didn't get there on time or didn't work in that direction when we said this was the direction, we're basically protecting inefficiency, and they should see and they should compete with these ones, and they should try to get to these prices and this technology. And the only way to do it is not by the governments protecting you, but by actually developing the technologies and having customers pick.
But can we compete against them? I mean, one of the reasons why you can sell a car for $20,000 is because these companies are backed by the Chinese government.
Well, but I think we also tried to do it. There was the IRA, and the Europeans did the same thing. So also, I think technology starts to mature.
But they are deeply subsidized by the Chinese government, right? That allows a company like this to sell a car for $20,000 or $18,000 or $24,000. Where if you are building a car in North America with North American auto workers who are paid what they're paid, not what Chinese workers are paid, you have to charge more.
Look, I think at the end of the day, what we have to do is also start working, because right now it's very difficult to compete because we don't have the supply chain, we don't have the critical minerals, we don't have the technology. And of course, that's part of, but we also have to start making a strategy on how to compete, and also what things we can replicate and try to do better here. Because one of the companies that was very successful and led this innovation was Tesla, who fostered this technology and developed it and then brought it to that country. They learned from it, and then they had the talent to actually develop these cars. I think we need to start thinking about the same. And the best way to do it is also, I think, maybe finding ways where they can either collaborate with us or we can learn from them.
It was really interesting test driving it. This is not a car that you can drive in Canada, so I'm glad to have the chance to do it. Thank you.
You'll see, once your neighbor gets one of these, you'll be like, hey, maybe I want one of those as well.
How did I do driving through the streets of Mexico City? I did okay?
I think a 9 out of 10.
9? That's very generous.
You were very polite.
I let people cross the road.
And they were even surprised, because usually people don't let them pass. So, like, even the pedestrians were like, thank you.
I'm Canadian. Thousands of Mexicans are driving Chinese EVs. Consumers love the technology and the price, but North American automakers say companies like BYD have an unfair advantage. Odrasir Barquera is the CEO of the Mexican Automotive Industry Association. What impact are Chinese EVs having on the North American auto industry? I mean, we see them everywhere here in Mexico City. What impact do you see them having?
We do see them in Mexico. They're still a relatively small portion of our domestic market, around 12 to 14%, but growing. But in terms of the North American industry, we still don't see them producing in North America. And we still see a North American automotive industry that is highly integrated and highly successful, to the point that North America is the second largest producer of vehicles in the world, obviously after Asia. I think what we need to focus on right now is how to strengthen the North American automotive industry.
How can North American automakers, this is a question that people in Canada are very worried about, how can North American automakers possibly compete on price?
I think you don't have to look at it on just price. I think you have to look at it on the whole infrastructure that each brand will give the consumer. And that's what we always advocate for here in Mexico. Any participant in the domestic market has to abide by the legal framework, by the regulatory framework, but also has to give guarantees to the consumer that they'll be able to service those cars. And I think that's where there's a lot of work to be done.
One of the arguments that people make, and it's not just about price, it's also about what people get for that price. And they say that North American automakers haven't had to compete with the Chinese manufacturers. The Chinese manufacturers are making cars that, yes, are cheaper, but also have technology that drivers want. And that it's getting those vehicles on the road. And that's good if you want fewer gas-burning cars on the road, if you want to be more environmentally friendly, whether it's an EV or a hybrid, that's a good thing. What would you say to people who make that argument that the North American automakers haven't had to compete in the same way with the Chinese?
I would say that the Chinese have had a significant advantage in terms of developing economies of scale, just because of the size of their population. They have that huge advantage that no other country has. But it's not the same competing in your domestic market than going international or global. I would say that the North American auto industry, which is not just the American companies, North America has every single producing country present in our domestic markets and in production activities. So what I would say is that all of the, let's say, legacy brands have been developing several technologies for the last 30 or so years, whereas the Chinese entered the race more recently. And yes, they've been developing one of those technologies, but they haven't been playing with the other ones. And I think that's what you need to understand in terms of the future of mobility. This is not just a one technology market.
When you hear the CEO of Ford say that, I mean, he loves his Chinese EV. He wouldn't give it back. And there are rumors that Ford is developing a partnership with a Chinese EV company. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells you that everyone has to look at those markets and to understand where the trends are going and to make sure that they are working on those trends with the tools that they have. And we've seen historically in the automotive industry joint ventures, alliances that come and go, and those help develop more technologies. So each company has their own decisions to make.
Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, was in China and worked out an agreement on tariffs that would reduce tariffs on certain parts within the Canadian economy, and part of that agreement was allowing in something like 49,000 Chinese EVs into the country every year at a reduced tariff rate. Do you think that was a mistake for the Prime Minister to do that?
I think that right now our focus should be North America and our focus should be USMCA.
Do you think it was a mistake for Canada's Prime Minister to open the door, even a crack, to Chinese EVs?
Given that it's not my country, I can't call it a mistake. What I can say is that all three governments should be focusing on North America right now. To the extent that we have to compete as a region, that should be the main focus. And I think that what he announced later on, which are measures to help the automotive industry, is an important thing. And I think that's more focused on North America than the other decisions.
What do you make of, just finally, the response from Donald Trump? I mean, he has said that he doesn't want cars made in Canada or made in Mexico in his country. He had concerns about Mark Carney introducing this opportunity for Chinese EV sellers to be in our country. What do you make of Donald Trump's response? Should we broadly be worried about that?
I think it's an area of concern, and we've seen it for the last year or so. But I think that the United States needs to be aware of the fact that they're not competitive without Mexico and Canada.
He says, to that point, we don't need, this is Donald Trump's, we don't need cars from Canada, and he would probably say we don't need cars from Mexico as well.
I think he needs to understand, him and his administration have to understand that the competitiveness that they've developed over the last 30 years is because of the integration. And that right now, as I said a while ago, North America is the second largest producer, but it's far from Asia right now. We only produce, as a region, 17% of the vehicles. Asia produces 60%. So if we want to really compete with that, and if we want to be stronger, both the U.S. and as a region, we need to focus on ourselves right now.
Do you think there's a future for CUSMA? The North American Trading Agreement that is up for review this summer?
I think there's a future for sure, and I think it's proven to be a tool that, even though in public speech is not necessarily celebrated, in fact, it has been owned up to some extent. And I think the U.S. understands that it's important for them to have a free trade agreement with North America.
That's important for Americans and for Canadians and for Mexicans. Odricir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Odricir Baquera is the CEO of the Mexican Automotive Industry Association. I'm Matt Galloway in Mexico City. This is a special edition of The Current. This has been The Current podcast. You can hear our show Monday to Friday on CBC Radio 1 at 8:30 a.m. in all time zones. You can also listen online at cbc.ca/The Current or on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Matt Galloway. Thanks for listening.